Back in those days, one of the things that we took pride in was our athleticism. And Golden Ball was what the city did for all the grade schools. And since we were a new school, we got put into a league with schools like Boise and Highland and Sabin and Vernon. And they used to beat us all the time until I got into the 6th grade. And from the 6th grade to my 8th grade year, we never lost a basketball game. And we set records back then that may not still be records now, but have you ever heard of a team winning 101-9? Have you ever heard of a game where you were so far ahead at halftime the other team left at halftime because they didn't want to get beat any worse? But you got to remember that on that basketball team, we had 6 kids that became all-city, all-state basketball players, all in one school. But the difference was because we were in that dividing line between Jefferson, Washington, and Benson. 3 kids went to Jeff, 2 kids went to Washington, and I went to Benson. So we ended up playing each other in high school. But the memories that and the camaraderies that I had with those other kids have lasted a lifetime.
What was the name of your middle school team?
The middle school team name was Ann Palmer Bakery. There used to be a little bakery down this street up there on Williams Avenue. It doesn't exist anymore. But they were our sponsor. Yes?
Did you think you were going to be a basketball player when you grew up?
I did. I thought I was going to be a basketball player when I grew up. But would you like to guess what my best sport was since I went to the University of Oregon? I was a wide receiver, and I played for Benson Tech. And we came in second that year in the PIL. And a lot of us that went from Elliott to Benson Tech went on to college. Some of us went on academics, and some of us went on athletics. Doesn't make any difference how you get there. If you have the opportunity, go to college. It will make a big difference. Yes?
Do you still know the players on your basketball team?
Yes. On that basketball team,
Yeah.
there was Willie Stoudemire, Charles Stoudemire, Kenny Warren, Edward Johnson, and myself, Danny Bell, and there was one more. And Danny Bell was a special player on our team. Danny Bell could not score. That wasn't his job. Danny Bell's job was to foul the best player on the other team. Do you know what that did to the best player on the other team? It made him stop shooting. So if the best player on the other team didn't shoot, it gave us a better chance. Yes?
What were your
Accomplishments?
accomplishments?
I went to Benson Tech and I studied machine shop. I learned enough in machine shop that when I went on to the University of Oregon, I decided to study something else. Because in machine shop, your hands are going to always be dirty. So I went to the University of Oregon and I studied urban planning. I did not graduate from the University of Oregon because at that particular time there was a war going on called the Vietnam War. And I got drafted along with thousands of other young men to go fight in the Vietnam War. But I never got to Vietnam, although my orders said to go to Vietnam. I had an older brother who got drafted before me. And he said, since you're an athlete, when you get to the fort, go to the gym. So I was sent up to Fort Lewis, which is in Washington. And 5 days later, I was supposed to go to Vietnam. But since my brother said go to the gym, I went to the gym. And a lieutenant colonel came out and asked me, am I assigned somewhere? And I said, not yet. And he says, okay, you're assigned to Fort Lewis. And I asked why. And he says, because I want to win the basketball championship here, so you're not going to Vietnam. I got lucky. Because everybody else that graduated with me in that particular Army position went to Vietnam. Now, what did I do when I was in the Army? They trained me to be an MP. Does anybody know what an MP is?
Nope.
They say that an MP is a military policeman.
What fort did you, or where did you say you were?
Fort Lewis
Lewis.
in Washington. Now, MP stands for military police. But when you're training, they tell you something else. When you're training, they tell you MP stands for masculine and proud. You notice how all of those movements are real quick? You don't see a soldier go. That's not discipline. One of the things you will learn, or you should learn, is discipline. Yes?
Did you have any friends that got drafted to the Vietnam War?
I had friends who fought in Vietnam.
Do you still
I have friends who were wounded in Vietnam, and I have friends that were killed in Vietnam.
Was there any survivors that you still talk to this day?
I couldn't hear that.
Are there any survivors that you talk to from this day?
Yes, yes. One of my friends was wounded twice before they finally sent him home. And he's still alive, and he still lives in Portland.
You born and raised in Portland?
I was born and raised in Portland, and I'm going to point to where I lived. You know where the Memorial Coliseum is?
Yeah.
You know where the Portland School District building is?
Yeah.
You know where the Blazer Arena is?
Yeah.
That's where I lived. Are there any homes left down there?
No.
I don't have a neighborhood to go home to. All I have is this school. Now, an interesting thing happened. When I got out of the military, I applied for a job at a company called Pacific Power. At Pacific Power, since I studied for 2 years at the University of Oregon, urban planning, they hired me and they taught me how to design power lines. You know, all those lines that go up and down the street that gives you electricity to your homes so you can turn on a switch and the light comes on? I designed those electrical lines. When they decided to rebuild Elliott Grade School and rename it Harriet Tubman, I was the Pacific Power and Light guy who redesigned the power to this building. So I got to come back to my old school and had something to do with its rebuild as to become Harriet Tubman. The only sad part I have about Harriet Tubman is that I lived outside the district and I wanted one of my sons to come back here. But because he was African American, they didn't want to bring more African Americans into the school. They wanted to bring more diversified kids into the school so that the whole class wasn't of one race, which is something I will bring up. When I was a kid, this whole class would have been all black, except for a few Chinese who lived in the area. Because this would have been considered the poor side of town. And back then, only the black people and the other people of color lived in this neighborhood. So going to a school like Benson Tech, to me and my family, was a means of getting out. Excuse me. So, it is nice to see that this area, the people who have moved into this area have taken care of their property and are trying to make this area a nice place to live. Oh, that one person that I said was on my basketball team, Willie Stoudemire, his family home is still up there in the corner, that yellow house up there in the corner. Yeah.
Does his family still live in the home?
As far as I know, they do. And does anybody know who Damon Stoudemire is? He played for the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, he was in that. Yeah.
He was Willie Stoudemire's son. Yes?
What is something that you're proud of?
Say again?
What is something that you're proud of?
Proud of. I am proud of the fact that I went to work for Pacific Power and Light Company, and I learned how to design power lines. Now, a lot of people can do that, and a few people are really good at it. The best person for that job becomes the senior estimator for his area. And I became the senior estimator for the state of Oregon. For the state of Oregon. So you know all those big buildings that are built downtown and at the Lloyd Center? Only the senior estimator gets to design the power to those places.
What is one thing that you're happy to see has changed here, and what is one thing you're sad to see has changed?
Oh, I'm glad to see that when they remodeled this building, they put in better heating systems. They put in better electronics so that you can have all of the better things that you have. But at the same time, it changed the way the school looks. So it doesn't look the same as it did when I was here. But improvements are good. Improvements are good.
What are some of your
Some of the
goals?
goals, some of my goals, some of my goals was to go out into the world and make a difference. And I found that studying urban planning would have given me the opportunity to see how communities grow, how they expand, and how new neighborhoods and things like that are designed. But since I didn't follow up on that, I ended up going to work for Pacific Power. In a way, I got to see that, because every time they expand and put in a new subdivision or build a new building, I got to be involved in it. Yes.
What do you want people to know about you?
Well, there are a couple of things. One of the things that I wanted to do was have a family when I was young so that I could participate with my children. I saw families that had older parents and noticed that they could not participate with their children. And I wanted to be able to do that. I'm proud to say that my daughter was the captain of the rally squad for football and basketball. My oldest son was the state champion for 3 years in wrestling. My second son was a 3-year starter at Madison High School basketball team. And my third son was a 3-year starter at Madison High School in baseball. Yes.
If you could have chosen to take your middle school education anywhere in Portland, would you still have chosen here?
Yes. I would have always have stayed here and tried to make this area more livable and more sustainable because this was my home.